Let the meltdown begin. MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network. I am Gabriel Morency. Let's do this thing. As UFC 167 was supposed to clear the muddy picture that was the welterweight division. But right now we got 167 problems and a bitch ain't one. Rumors, innuendo, retirement, TMZ, and everything else in between. And it's only been 4 days since George St-Pierre and Johnny Hendricks threw it down. It was the UFC's 20th anniversary, and I don't recall an uglier moment than the press conference after the fact when Dana White decided to piss on GSP's grave before the casket was even in the ground. Evidently, you can't retire from the UFC. It's similar to the mob. You know, you retire when they say you retire, and we ask you if GSP should retire. I'm not going to get into the innuendo. I'm not going to get into the rumors. I'll get into a fact that I believe that George St-Pierre will get seriously hurt if he fights again. I don't think GSP will last if he fights Robbie Lawler. The guy seriously has some head issues, blurred vision, the dude's getting lost. If the UFC really cared about their fighters like they claim to, they would let GSP ride off into the sunset, have Carlos Condit and Matt Brown fight, have Robbie Lawler and Johnny Hendricks fight, and have the winners fight for the championship. But that's just me, Gabriel Morency. So who cares what I think? We're going to be joined by Mark Hominick. We're going to be joined by John Ramdeen. We're going to be joined by Joey Odessa. All that and more on tonight's MMA Meltdown. MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network continues. I am Gabriel Morency, and I'm excited for tonight's program, man. You know, we're a couple of days removed from UFC 167, but as I stated off the top, UFC 67 was billed as a card that was going to answer a ton of questions about the welterweight division, yet we got more questions now. It was UFC 167, now we got 168 questions that are still left unanswered. There's a ton of rampant speculation going on online with rumors. TMZ comes out with false reports. The MMA internet websites are going crazy. The blogs are going crazy. Crazy rumors on message boards. And let's bring in a man, get his thoughts on this card. A man who's knows something or two about 25-minute wars. And a number one contender in the UFC, longtime mixed martial art veteran, Mr. Mark Hominick steps up and joins us. Mark, it's always a pleasure, my man. How you doing?
Always good to hear your voice. What's happening today?
Hey, it's always great, Mark. And you know what? I actually, I thought of you on Saturday night after the fight, actually. And I was thinking, man, I got to get Mark on this week because I was really looking forward to your opinion on this. And, man, one of the reasons why we all love the sport is because we never know what we're going to see. But like I said, we thought a lot of questions were going to be answered after Saturday. More questions now than ever, Mark.
You bet. Yeah, it was a fight that the one thing that I liked about it is that it lived up to the hype. You always have these big cards or these super cards that have all this marketing behind it, all this promotion, and then it falls flat. And this one did nothing of that. Like, it lived up to the hype. Everyone went home knowing that, a great fight was had, and, there's more controversy and questions answered again, so it creates more buzz.
And you're exactly right, Mark. Controversy is good for business. People always say that, like, after a bad boxing decision, I'm never going to watch the sport again. And I always say these are the same people that say they're never going to drink again after they get wasted. You know what I mean? Of course you're going to watch the sport again. And it's funny because more people, Mark, were watching the UFC press conference on YouTube than were watching the prelim fights on YouTube. So more people. That's
a pretty amazing stat. Yeah. And again, like, they want to hear what's next. What's the outcome of this? What's the outrage from everybody? I thought Dana was pretty, he's blatant going against George. I didn't really like that. Like, he's your champion, you should support him. It's not his fault that the judges.
Have you ever seen him? Have you ever seen him disrespect a champion like that in the history of the UFC?
I mean, he's been pretty critical of Anderson Silva when he's fought the 5-round fight over in Abu Dhabi.
Oh, yeah,
and rightfully so, just the way he performed. But again, he's your champion. He's your longest reigning champion. He's got the most title defenses in UFC history. He's, a sports icon. And I think he deserves that respect. But again, I mean, that's what people like about Dana, is that he doesn't pull any punches and he's going to give your opinion. So you got to respect that about him.
You know, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because as you mentioned, you're right, he was critical of Silva because Silva sort of made a mockery of it. But he wasn't that critical of Anderson Silva after the Chris Weidman fight, when people actually legitimately did feel ripped off. You know, a ton of hype, number one contender, great fighter in Weidman, and Silva clowns around. And people said, oh, he always clowns around, but not to that extent. And Dana had his back after the fact, but immediately following the fight, he went right into he owes us a fight. He got his ass kicked. Not one, he showed the heart of a champion. And there's a couple of things that are being lost in all of this. The controversy of the loss. Johnny Hendricks is he kind of did get screwed in my opinion, but even more so after the fact that no one's even talking about that. Everyone's talking about, GSP and, the rampant rumor mill of what's going on. But what's kind of lost in this, Mark, was the heart to me that GSP showed in coming back in this fight.
That's just it. That gets lost in the fact that everyone's talking about the controversy of the loss. It's not George's fault that the judges said he won. If people think he lost, that's fine. But again, the judges said he won it, so he's the winner. He laid his heart on the line. He didn't back down. He came back. He fought through adversity, and he showed why he's the champion, why he's been champion this long. And again, I had it 3-2 for George. A lot of people probably disagree with me, but again, I think there's an unwritten rule that you got to beat the champ, and I think it was close enough that Johnny could have won 3 rounds of 2, but also George too. So I think a lot of times that's in the back of the judge's mind. You got to beat the champ.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. And I thought Johnny won the fight, but I'm not sitting here like outraged. Because the fact is, and Johnny admits it after, says, I fought at 70% in the third and fourth round for the championship rounds. And I want to blame any fighter here and that's what happens, right? People start booing and all, screw that guy and that guy. But Hendricks had the brass ring right there, man. He didn't take it. You know what I mean? Like, he had George, and George in that third round sort of started to take it back a little bit. I personally thought when George slipped in the fourth, and Johnny got on top of him, I thought that was it. I was like, I don't know how George is going to overcome that.
Yeah, you know what? I don't think we're even fair to criticize either of them. They fought their hearts out. They went for 5 rounds. They showed what the champion is all about: heart, talent, skill, athleticism, desire. They showed what that is. So I wouldn't criticize anything. They both laid on the line, and I'm proud of both of them.
Mark, I don't know if this is a good way of putting it, actually. In that George St-Pierre seems like he's the coolest guy at the party, yet everybody's been on a bender for 3 days, and George wants to go home now. And
he's ready.
Everybody's all like, no, George, not yet, man. The party's still going, because he's the life of the party, yet he knows it's time to go. You decided when to leave the party. So many fighters don't. You did. So you know how difficult it must be. You can still fight, but you made a mental decision, a family decision, that it's not in Mark Hominick's best interest to be in an octagon right now. And it seems like George St-Pierre is going through this, yet going through this very publicly. It must be extremely difficult for him, Mark.
For sure. And again, he's been on a different level than me. I fought for the world title. He's been the world champion for years. So again, it's a higher level than I was at. But again, if your heart's in a different place, you're not going to be competing at that highest level that you expect yourself, you expect your fans, and you expect the company. So I think he's going to know the answer to that, and I don't think anyone should force him into that. And again, on that end, I don't think he has anything else to prove. That there will always be another contender. They can always build up the next fight. Whether it's Robbie Lawler or trying to build up a Rory McDonald fight, or the Tyron Woodley's coming up. So there's always going to be a contender. There's always going to be this next guy, or even the rematch with Johnny Hendricks. That this guy can beat him. He hasn't beat everybody in the division. There'll always be that. But I think for me personally, I think he has nothing more to prove. I think great. I'd love to see him continue to fight and continue to, be the champion. But I mean, if his mind is hurt elsewhere, I don't think anyone should judge him on that.
I'm not buddies with GSP, but if I was, I would tell him to retire. Yeah.
I don't think that's a decision. I think that's a decision that the person is going to know. I don't think you can be talked in or out of it.
Yeah.
Like me personally, I know that. Like if that's the way you're going, if you're staying or going, I think it's you're going to know the answer to that, and you're the only one.
So, but and we can't speculate on this, but Mark, I hear, and I remember talking to you, and it was a great interview you did with us on the Sirius XM radio show. We got a ton of feedback and response about your honesty of it. You said it was time to go because, you were getting punched in the face, and it wasn't going the way it was a couple of years ago for you. And you look at George St-Pierre, and it's not going the same way. I think if he fights again, he's going to lose. And I don't say that in a disrespectful fashion to him, but he's talking about blurred vision, and he had to stay in Vegas longer because he couldn't freaking see after. That's not normal stuff. And he talks about getting lost. He doesn't remember how he gets home. I've talked to a lot of football players that had severe concussion problems, and one guy told me, he used to leave the stadium and he wouldn't remember getting home, or he'd get lost going home. It's not rocket science. I don't have to be Dr. Drew to figure out that George St-Pierre, in my opinion, has some concussion-like symptoms here, Mark.
I think any athlete, like who plays contact sport, like especially mixed martial arts or football or hockey or whatever the sport is, at that level competition for that many years, I mean, it takes a toll on your body. There's no question. But again, he's the one who's going to know that, and I'm sure he's always taking care of himself, and he'll know what's the best decision for him. And I know for me, it was it. Like I just couldn't make the same. The main reason for me also is like I just couldn't make the same sacrifices. And again, I think I just owe that to myself. If I'm not competing and beating guys that I should be taking out in a round, then it's time to go, because I don't want to be a fighter who's just hanging around just to be able to compete. I want to be competing at the highest level I expect of myself.
Mark Hominick with us. Mark, you look at the rise of mixed martial arts in this sport, and you were one of the pioneers. You were at the forefront throughout it all. And now you look at the status of Canadian mixed martial arts. GSP's future uncertain. Rory McDonald, maybe not as close to greatness as people pushed him to be. Who's selling out 55,000 seats? You were a part of that magnificent night and memorable night. That's not going to happen again, is it? Like, what do you see?
Well, I think in Ontario, the biggest thing is just getting more shows and getting athletes to be some stars, because that's what you need. You could have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have the showcase in the stage to show that, you're not going to make it to the next level. And that was, luckily George and I came up in Oiseau and Sam Stout and Cote and all the guys from the Montreal-based promotion. We were lucky enough to have that platform. Yeah. That our first fight, we were fighting in front of 6,000 people at a sold-out arena. And that was in 2002. So, we had that opportunity coming up, and we were built right. And I think that's a big thing, is having, a promotion and a promoter locally to make you a star and then get to the next level. And then it's your responsibility to take that opportunity and capitalize on it.
As a gym owner and as somebody that, still trains fighters and up-and-coming fighters as well, Mark, has it been disappointing to you in which there was a lot of hype leading up to the legalization of mixed martial arts in the province of Ontario? But really, other than the UFC coming here once or twice a year, we really haven't seen a huge trickle-down effect. We really haven't seen a strong regional, local company, have we?
That's just it. It's been super frustrating, because we have a lot of talented guys at our gym at Adrenaline that just need that platform, need that opportunity just to showcase how good they are. And if you have to do it in someone else's backyard, you're not normally brought in to win. So.
Yeah, I don't usually comment on other networks, but the Score Championship Series was doing a good thing. I don't know why the big bucks over at Rogers had to cut that out. Really, they could have afforded to keep it going. It's bizarre. Isn't that just so Canadian, though, Mark? That we love guys at the top, but we don't want to put that work in, right? It's the same in the music scene. Now, we won't support the guy at the local bar, but if he makes it in the States, then oh boy, we love him.
Yeah, it is tough, but again, we're also Canadian and we're built tough. So you got to find a way and be gritty and be tough and get through the the hardship to make it to the top. And I know our guys are trying, and I hope there's more opportunity for them locally, though.
Have you ever thought of getting into the promotion business at all?
No, not at all. I think my spot is as a coach and as influence on young fighters, and I think that's where it lies.
Mark Hominick with us. Mark, it was great to catch up with you again. It's always a pleasure, my man.
Appreciate it. Always good to be on here, guys.
There's Mark Hominick with us, longtime mixed martial artist, veteran, has been through the rigors of the sport. And we can't speculate on George St-Pierre's physical well-being. But you don't have to be a rocket science to figure this out. The guy's not the same fighter as he was right now. He got beat up pretty good by Carlos Condit. And he looks unnaturally. It looks like he's, someone stuck him in a giant freaking blender and after these fights. And, you hear about him getting lost and blurred vision and stuff. And I personally believe that George St-Pierre should retire. He's got enough money, ride off into the sunset. He doesn't owe anybody anything whatsoever. MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network continues. MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network continues. Thanks to Mark Hominick for joining us on the program. Longtime odds maker Joey Odessa will join us in a couple of moments. The Fight Network's John Ramdeen joins us in studio as he did last week, sitting in the exact same chair where he predicted a Robbie Lawler upset over Rory McDonald. John also predicted a GSP victory over Johnny Hendricks. Was it a GSP victory in your opinion?
It was. On Saturday night when we watched the fights, it was a very social setting. We had a good little party here at the channel. So anytime George St-Pierre fights, everybody comes out of the woodwork. People want to see the best fighter.
It's tough to judge a fight when you're watching with a bunch of people and it's emotional.
Exactly.
When you're cheering,
exactly.
Right?
Especially when you're watching with a bunch of people that have maybe never seen mixed martial arts before, so you're kind of forced to explain things to them. But everybody really loved the atmosphere. So when you're watching the fight, you're missing a lot of the details because you're trying to explain some things. So I had the luxury of coming back on Sunday. Robin Black and myself watched the fight back-to-back, so we watched almost an hour of the main event, and of course everybody was talking about it came down to that first round. So I don't think anybody questioned the fact that Johnny Hendricks won round number 2 and round number 4.
Yeah.
George St-Pierre won round number 3 and number 5, and it goes back to that very first round. So I think we were very, very objective when we watched the fight, and I think you have to give it to the champion. It was very, very close, but the fact is that George, based on the rules of MMA, the unified rules, the UFC is scored under the 10-point must system.
Yeah.
People are like, well, who would you rather be? Look at George St-Pierre's face after the fight and look at Johnny Hendricks' face.
And even the UFC themselves used that one. Dana White said that. Look at him. Who won the fight? I was on Sunday night in Las Vegas on a local Vegas radio station with Reed Harris.
Yep.
Former president of
WEC.
And now UFC event.
Yep.
Said, come on, Gabe, we all know who won the fight. Look at their faces.
Now, why would he say that? Oh, that's right. Johnny Hendricks used to fight for the WEC, and he's the guy that kind of discovered Johnny Hendricks, so he wants to be the guy.
Bias, right?
That's exactly, no bias. He's the guy who says, I discovered Johnny Hendricks.
Might think, since we're based out of Canada, and I saw that last week on YouTube, with the YouTube comments, oh, what a shock, all these bozos in Canada picking GSP.
I actually wanted, and this is no disrespect to George St-Pierre or his team at TriStar. We know that they're leaders, they're winners, they know how to succeed in mixed martial arts. But my personal opinion going into this fight, it was time to spread the wealth. You know what I mean? GSP has been at the top for so long. It's time for other guys, because mixed martial arts, not a lot of guys get to enjoy the fruits of their labor, so to speak, and get to ball it, so to speak, when it comes to MMA.
And when you say that, you mean get a championship shot, make some real money. Get on TV, make some real money where they can get a real sponsor. Right?
Exactly, and I think that George St-Pierre has got the chance to be a millionaire. Anderson Silva got the chance to be a multi-millionaire. It's time for Chris Weidman. It was time for Johnny Hendricks.
It's funny you say that, because it pisses me off that Pettis is hurt right now.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get mad at somebody for getting hurt, but I fear that Pettis is always going to be hurt.
Right.
And it's going to hijack the division forever. Look, so now Thompson's going to wait, and then TJ's waiting, and there's going to be a million cars parked up in the parking lot. and they don't get a chance to make money. We overvalue the belt. It's about the money. It's about the money. You fight for the belt, you get real sponsors, you're on the countdown shows, and it builds your brand a bit. And I totally agree with you as far as that's concerned. I personally think George should retire. I asked people on Twitter, John, and the UFC says GSP owes it. Do you feel the same way I do about it? He owes it to the company, and he owes it to Hendricks to fight again.
Yeah. What's hilarious is, Dana White came out and said that George St-Pierre is the king of pay-per-views, which means the UFC has made more money off of George St-Pierre than any other fighter out there.
An estimated 30 mil per pay-per-view.
I think he's paid his dues, don't you? I mean, if this guy wants to walk away from mixed martial arts, let him. I don't think he should. I think at 32 years of age, right now is where the most money he's going to be able to make in mixed martial arts is right now, especially with this rematch with Johnny Hendricks. I understand he's got a bunch of issues. He's got to get those things sorted out. I understand the pressure of being a champion. I understand all of those things. But will he, at 45 years of age or 50 years of age, sit back and think, you know what? I could have made another $25 million if I just kind of hung in those last couple of years.
It has to be a difficult decision in the sense that, let's say George has $20 million saved.
Yep.
You know, I'd estimated, some people say he makes $12 million a year. Other people are saying 17.
Yep.
I generally believe closer to the 12.
Sure.
But it's an accurate number. So let's say he's made 12 mil a year for the last 3 years, let's say. You know, he hasn't blown all that money.
Right.
You know, he doesn't have a bunch of failed businesses, and he's pretty tight, actually.
Yep.
Like a lot of people from Quebec are. And I know this because I'm from Quebec, but it's true. French Quebecers are cheap people.
Well, one thing I have heard about George, and it's from his entourage, is that George St-Pierre is a very generous guy.
Yeah.
And this is a guy that came from humble beginnings, and you have to imagine you've got all this money, spread the wealth.
I know, and the thing is, even if you have 15, but if you can make another 7, that's 50% of what you have, right?
Exactly.
So you're thinking, I don't know. I can't speak for him. I'm not a doctor, but he doesn't seem to be well, John. He's not the same fighter. I personally believe he will lose his next fight. And he might have the blurred vision for even longer than a couple of days. I mean, the guy thinks he's getting anally probed by aliens, John. You know, like he's out there right now. He's talking about getting lost, going home from the gym.
Yeah.
He's got blurred vision.
Yeah.
The writing's on the wall. Like, does Dana White, are you not allowed to leave? Is this the mob? Are you in there? When you're in the UFC, it's easier to get out of the Hells Angels than it is the UFC, evidently. Like, I don't get this. So is he supposed to, like, be dead on the ground and then Johnny could be spitting in his cup? You want Johnny Hendricks as your champion? The guy can't get through a freaking sentence without spitting in a cup. You know, really? That's your champ? Good luck. Good luck selling that, Dana.
I love it. I agree. I mean, you know what? You just read Bob Probert's book and you understand a little bit about some of these athletes that have dealt with head trauma throughout their careers. And in Bob Probert's book, he talks about, I walk into a room and I forget why I went into the room. And you have to imagine a lot of these fighters, George St-Pierre, probably one of them, because of the rigorous training camps that he's had to deal with. I mean, he's been in so many championship bouts. He's so nuts when it comes to retaining his title that he, pulls out all the stops, works with the best guys.
But he used to be the one, John, that was unscathed.
Yeah.
Now he's the one that's always messed up. I think that kick to the head from Condit did some damage up there. I really do.
I wouldn't be surprised, but I've had the good fortune to talk to a lot of these fighters, and Sean Pearson, who fights in the UFC, also spends time training with George St-Pierre and their team, and he talks about, you go to TriStar sparring, it is not sparring. It is not like these other gyms. You are in full fights there.
These guys go.
And if that's 8 weeks,
that's why I liked Rick Story.
Yeah.
Look what Rick Story did. That intense training that he went with GSP, where they go real hard. It sucks, John. It's amazing how fast their segments go. But check out him and Robin Black breaking it down on the Fight Network. We got some videos in a week. We got Joey Odessa from Costa Rica. We're going to crunch some numbers. MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network continues. It's amazing how fast this program goes by. We should probably be on for 2 hours, but I'm sure the commenters on YouTube would disagree with that. To give you guys more opportunity to rip everybody around here. Let's get to our videos of the week, and we got some good ones this week. All right, last week we talked about Bakhtinov and the Elliott fight, and I was kind of thinking I was going to take Elliott. Then I realized I'm not betting against these dudes from Kazakhstan. And this video of Khabib Nurmagomedov and whatever his last name, Khabib, as we always just call him. UFC fighter Khabib, the dude with the Russian hat, badass. This is what this guy was doing when he was 9 years old. He's wrestling bears. The bear's got good ground game, too. He's a black belt, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Pulling a Mike Tyson, little biting. And check this out here. Like this is awesome. Some nice wrestling technique. This is great here. Look, Khabib's going for a single leg takedown. Single, I guess, what do you call it? Got him in guard. This is great here. Now look, the bear goes for the takedown. Double leg. Double leg takedown. I've said it before and I'll say it again. This is why we in the Western world are a bunch of wusses. This is why Russia's gonna kick our ass in like 10 years. If we took a 9-year-old and made him wrestle a bear, Nancy Grace would be having a heart attack. Who are these parents? Lock them up. You can't do this. Parents would be in jail. The kid would end up in a foster home. For shame, North America. Soft. For shame. All right, there was nothing soft about this guy dropping a 545-pound dumbbell on his chest. Who's the dumbbell now, bitch?
Come on, Jake.
Come on, Jake. Don't drop it. Just for the record, this is awful. Oh! I'd be snapped in half if that's me. I'm dead.
Jake, are you okay?
Hold on, do not bring him up. Do not.
For the record, that's 545 pounds. Check it out here. As you can see, I don't spend a lot of time lifting 545-pound weights, but man, that would seriously just snap my ass in half. All right. You know what? Many years ago, and I know many of the viewers know who I'm talking about, I worked with Mr. Cam Stewart. Cam Stewart, bigger, jolly guy. Everybody loves Cam, and Cam loves everybody, except Cam doesn't like guys that wear tap-out and affliction shirts. And I remember once we were at a UFC, one of these, train deals, and everyone's wasted, and there's UFC fighters there with fans and stuff. And Cam got into it with a bunch of kids in tap-out shirts. And Cam told me, are all MMA douchebag, he asked me, are all MMA fans douchebags in tap-out shirts? And Forrest Griffin was sitting with us and said, yes, they are. And this video proves the point.
What's up? Hey, where you going? Come on, where you going? You love this. You love this. I hate you.
Do you know these guys?
No, they just heard the music and came in. Whoever these are, we don't give a shit. We're drinking them all.
They're being dickbags. We should kick them out.
What? No, we're not gonna say anything to them. You crazy?
Why?
Dude, they have tap-out stuff on. They know MMA. They could squash us like bugs. Uh-oh. Oh, no!
I'm saying something.
Go, fine. Go, I'm staying back here, and that doesn't make me less of a man.
Hey, guys.
Hey, what?
Hey, You gotta go.
Oh, really? Because this is my house, so off with you.
It's not. It's my place.
Oh, this is your house. All right, all right. Well, if you want me out, you're gonna have to make me tap out.
All right, let's fight.
You want to fight me? What, you crazy? Can't you read, my man?
Your shirt doesn't mean shit.
Fight already. Hey, one at a time, all right? Shut it right now. Let's not forget what the shirt says. It says tap outs.
Look, dude, I got a herniated disc in my dad's lawyer. So if you touch me at all, I will sue the f out of you, all right?
What you gonna do, bitch?
I still want to fight.
After what we just said?
Yes.
All right, you want to fight? You want to fight? I've been ready for a fight. Come on. Put him up. Put him up. It's your funeral, my man.
Where are you going?
Oh, I'm right here. Where are you going? Where are you going?
I'm here.
All right, Troy, get the door. Hey, come on, see? Where you going now? Where the hell you going? Oh, and look at you running.
Well, I guess we probably shouldn't hold our breath for a tap out sponsorship anytime soon. Coming up next, Joey Odessa. MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network continues. Let's send it to Costa Rica. It's time to make some bagels with Joey Odessa. Always a pleasure, Joey. How you doing tonight?
Hey, what's happening tonight, G?
We're doing all right, Joey. A lot of stuff to get to. We've got the Bellator card, the weekly Friday night fights Bellator card rapidly approaching. But, of course, the mixed martial arts world still all abuzz about UFC 167. And, first things first, props to you. You told me on Sports Rage, our podcast on Friday night, that George St-Pierre was going to retire, win or lose on Saturday night. I disagreed with you. I thought that was crazy talk. You were right, Joey. I was wrong.
Yeah, I mean, they might coax him back, some good PR work and stuff, but I think he's got himself, his issues aren't as big as, what was Dana White supposed to say? I mean, if a guy comes to you at that point and says, hey, look, my world's crashing down, and, is he going to say, yeah, you're right? Or is he going to say, well, you know what, it's not the end of the world. There's bigger problems. You'll get over it. You'll fight again. I think he said the right thing. I think there's two ways to look at it, but people will just find reasons to criticize. And, the truth of the matter is, I mean, what could George St. Pierre's problem be, and whatever it is, there's no problem that can't be overcome. I mean, it's just, especially when you got that kind of money.
Well, no, seriously, what, as you say, what can his problems be? He's not George Zimmerman. He's not pointing shotguns at his pregnant girlfriend's face. He's not O.J. Simpson, so we can't overblow the problems. And I don't want to get into speculation. We're not TMZ. And I want to talk more about the number aspect of this, Joey, because there were rumors, and obviously there were rumors because you told me on Friday night before the fight that GSP is going to retire on Saturday night no matter what. So you as an odds maker had to have taken this somewhat into consideration, or at least a lot of people did, Joey, because that wasn't natural betting pattern line movement on Saturday night, Joey. The line was plummeting like somebody knew something.
Yeah, it was up and down. I saw a lot of sharp money on Johnny Hendricks late. It didn't show up on some of the screens. There were rumors, and I don't know exactly how true they were, but I heard of low numbers out in Vegas. I didn't see it with my own eyes, so, I question, how low it actually got. But, if he did dip below minus 200, it's a possibility. I know that some places were dealing it, really low. I suggested dealing it low. I needed Hendricks. He lost the decision. Debatable, okay, but you know what? Life goes on. I mean, when we win something like that, that's what people don't understand as fans. They get so emotionally involved with it. And, it's tough. I listened to a guy, Burt Watson, the other day, and he said it's tough to be a fan of the sport when you have to deal with these guys coming out of the room and managing them, and as they come out and being their assistant and keeping things in order. And it's the same thing for guys that are wagering or odds makers and I'm not the media. It's not my job to report what's going on out there or what I think. And my opinion is just people say who you think's going to win the fight, and he might not win the fight, but we'll give it. We'll roll the dice with it. And Hendricks didn't get there. I thought he won, but
was it better? Was it better or worse for the book? Was there more Johnny because it was plus money? So did the value even out basically? What side did the books need, Joey, on Saturday night?
I tell you what, it was almost a perfect chart. I would have preferred to if I was a casino sportsbook, what I saw, I would have preferred to go in needing Hendricks for a ton more and actually having a big risk on George St-Pierre winning the fight, but with the retirement talk and all that stuff, but it evened itself out. George St-Pierre's got a lot of fans. I mean, he carries all Canada on his shoulders. I mean, Canada's not about, Ryan Gimo, and certainly not about Rory McDonald anymore, and not about, TriStar, you talked about the gyms. Take the ball there. I mean, you talk about winning is contagious and losing is contagious. I mean, George St-Pierre just slid by there, and, we might see a steady, the Canadian market's huge.
It is huge, and it just got a hell of a lot smaller if George St-Pierre isn't in it anymore, because I tell you what, Rory McDonald's not selling 55,000 tickets at the Rogers Center. Rory McDonald's not selling out the Bell Center multiple times like George St-Pierre did, and Rory McDonald's not going to make the UFC over $30 million per pay-per-view like GSP did. But it's amazing, Joe. You and I have talked about this for years, actually, in which gyms, it is contagious. And people always think the gym is done after the fact. Great example is with Gracie and the Diaz's and with Jake and with Gil. They were on top of the world. They were winning. And then they couldn't buy a break. Jake's father dies, suspensions, losing fights. And then everybody becomes down in the same place. And it's hard for one guy to turn it around, but when it does, it all turns around. TriStar's been on cloud 9 for a couple of years now, Joey, but if you look at it, Mike Ricci, disappointing situation with Ricci, gets released after the Ultimate Fighter and his losses. Rory McDonald, supposed to be the next great thing, hyped up by many, including yourself, Joey. I give you props for calling out the GSP retirement before it happened. But you also said that Rory McDonald would beat GSP. Maybe you still stand by that, but what about Rory right now? Were you disappointed in his performance, or do you give more credit to Robbie Lawler for just being an all-out freaking monster?
I have to give credit to Robbie Lawler for winning the fight. I mean, we'll go again, emotional maturity. Rashad Evans, might not have been the best KO that we've ever seen in hindsight.
Well, no, far from it. And we talk about getting an honest effort. I don't believe, the best way I can put this without, starting a real firestorm is, I don't think we got a honest effort from Chael there. He didn't try to do the takedown. He gave up on it. It looked like he was a mark. It looked like he gave the fight up to Rashad, basically, and he didn't care. He didn't care after the fight, and he didn't care during the fight, Joey. Let's call it out for what it is.
It's kind of a wrestler mentality. Nobody likes to lose, but, guys don't retire undefeated. And if Chael had his choice, and if I had my choice, if I was a fighter, I would fight as much as possible, because these guys are used to, Chael said in interviews, they're used to these tournaments. They're used to going a full season, having to make weight every week, missing Thanksgiving dinner, missing Christmas dinner, New Year's, all that stuff. And, these guys are, they're a different breed, and the Olympians too. People keep talking about, the Olympic impact, and look at the impact that it's had on some of these. Look at Tyrone Woodley. You know what I mean? Look at Chandler.
And Woodley looked good.
I mean, Asker. These guys, arguably, Asker's phenomenal, best wrestler at that weight. But he does lack in other areas where a guy like Chandler doesn't have the credentials that Asker has, but that wrestling rubs off on him, and so does the attitude.
Yeah.
Right now in the MMA, with all the money coming in and all the new people getting involved now, because now it's like, it's acceptable. It's on Fox. you're getting a lot of these guys are going to need to get emotionally mature because there's things they can do and things they can't do right now. You know, there's things they can say that are acceptable, and if they want to take it to the next level, doesn't matter what, Dana can swear, say whatever he wants. Dana's going to be Dana. He's a promoter just like Don King. Don King, greatest promoter, arguably of all time, made people millions. The UFC.
But that's the moral, I guess, there, Joe. I don't think you can be a great promoter and a great guy. Like, Dana keeps talking about Viacom being bad guys. They're bad guys. You're all bad guys. Let's be honest. There's no honor amongst thieves, so to speak.
They're not really. Let's not call them thieves because.
No, I'm not calling them thieves, but I'm stating what promoter is a good guy. So Dana's saying everyone else is a bad guy. When he's pissing on GSP, when GSP's in a hospital, Dana's not a good guy when he's doing that. None of them are good guys. They're promoters. I'm not saying people in the media are good guys. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, they're bad guys, but come on, Joey, they're not. No, none of these promoters are good guys. They care about themselves. I don't think they give a crap about their fighters. I really don't.
I think there's some that, it's tough to get attached to a fighter because then, look, if we say Dana White, what do you think of? I think of, if you say who's Dana's, buddy, I would think Chuck Liddell, and people criticize him, well, Chuck got this and Chuck got that. Well, you know what? You cannot please everybody. Somebody's going to be unhappy. I mean, it's why, look.
Trust me, that's my life story. I'm aware.
Of the vote, you get elected. Ask Rob Ford.
All right, Joey. So, we got to wrap it up. We'll get to the Bellator in a minute, but Ben Askren. You've talked about Ben Askren being arguably the best wrestler in all of mixed martial arts. It's a little bit strange what happened to Ben. It is strange. I didn't expect the UFC to offer him a huge Hector Lombard, Alistair Overeem type of $1 million bonus or anything like that. But to offer him nothing, and now Ben Askren, I know you hate when someone comes across as desperate, Joey. You hate when a fighter says, oh, I want the bonus, or, I'm not making enough money, etc. I know you hate that stuff. What do you make, in your opinion, what do you think of Ben Askren saying he'll fight Rory McDonald for free? And if he doesn't win, he'll ride off into the sunset and give up mixed martial arts?
I think that is probably the best reply. I think that's something that I think that's a good thing. I look at it from this point of view. I think that and I haven't given this a lot of thought, but just from the hip, I think that by Bjorn releasing him, it kind of threw him under the bus because it took away his bargaining value. You know what I mean? It took away, and I use the word value, it took away some chips from Ben. And now, Bellator gave him a free light to go see what he could do elsewhere, and it made him worth less. In my humble opinion, I think it cut back on his bargaining power. I mean, I'm like stuttering here trying to say. I think it hurt him, but I think by him saying that shows his confidence, and they can build off of that. He's got to come up with a personality other than, and he's got to show something more inside the octagon. I mean, look, these Bellator guys, good fighters. There's some great fighters over there at 155, but the truth of the matter is Ben Askren is a great wrestler, and I did say on several occasions that he would take George St-Pierre down, just like I said Johnny Hendricks was the best wrestler that George St-Pierre ever faced, and he was going to face a different animal in there. All hindsight, I didn't say that Askren would beat him. I said he would take him down. What he did on top, I don't know. Now we may never know. Hopefully George will rebound from what's going on. But these guys need guys in their ear. They need the right people in their ear. They need the right management that aren't sitting there and splitting hairs over.
Well, if he's got the right people,
over nickels to pick up, pick up pennies.
If he's got the right people in George's ear, they should be telling him to retire. I've been saying this, ever since Saturday night. He doesn't owe the UFC anything. He doesn't owe Johnny Hendricks anything. He doesn't owe Dana White anything. He owes himself something, and I think he should ride off into the sunset because he's not the same fighter as he was, let's just say, even about 2 years ago. Joey, we got to wrap it up, so let's quickly blast through the Bellator. It's tough with the Bellator stuff this early in the week for us, so I'm not going to ask you for any picks, but here we go. We got our boy Shlemenko on the card. Shlemenko, what? Last time he was like minus 600-700. Are we going to see? It's not going to be that big this time around, is it, Joey? What is it going to be, like 300
people
type
are
stuff?
Starting to believe in Doug Marshall, ex-WEC guy. He's doing pretty well. I got to give him props. I mean, Marshall's won some fights I didn't think he'd win. But you know what the one thing, I look at this card, And any wrestler will know that the Lehigh Valley, I guess it's the Lehigh County or Lehigh Valley County or that area, Bethlehem County, PA, or whatever it's called down there, is a hotbed for wrestling.
It's wrestling country, yeah.
And I, Allentown, Bethlehem, I mean, Lehigh University. I mean, this is where, you go to, it's a great wrestling area. So much talent comes out of there. And you got a card headlining in Bethlehem, PA, with two Russians, that are huge favorites. And a guy, by the name of, he's on the undercard. They got a 15-1 fighter on the undercard, Yamachi, or I don't even know how to say his name. But I don't know. I just think you should have put some wrestlers on the card. You might have packed the arena.
Joey Odessa with us. You can follow him on Twitter at MMA Odds, twitter.com. He joins me every Tuesday night on SiriusXM, channel 167 as well as on SportsRageTV.com. Due to the fact that it's on the internet, Joey's a little bit looser online as he broke the GSP retirement story on Friday night. Joey, it's always a pleasure, my man. Thanks for the time.
Okay, have a good one, G.
There's Joey Odessa with us, and he's a lines maker, but lines makers know everything. It's their job to know everything. They have to know everything. And even though Joey's not a reporter, Joey's sitting on a lot of stuff because he's setting numbers for this stuff, and he called it. He said, win or lose, Morency, mark my words, George St-Pierre will retire on Saturday night. And that's interesting that Odessa knew that, because Faraz Zahabi supposedly didn't. Dana White supposedly didn't, which means somebody's not telling the truth. MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network continues. Thanks to all of our guests for joining us this evening. John Ramdeen, Mark Hominick, and Joey Odessa. We invite all of you to join me on Friday night, December the 6th at Trophy Sports Bar in Montreal. We'll be watching the UFC. We'll be throwing it down. We're going to have all kinds of live kick-ass guests. That's Friday night, December the 6th at Trophy Sports Bar. And for all my daily selections, log on to SportsRageTV.com. Great job by everyone here at the Fight Network. Other than that, you're on your own. Later.